Hi, and welcome back to Educatic Activism Podcast. This is our second podcast. Today, our speakers will be myself, a student from Champlain College, and with my colleague Alex Suto, who is also a student in Champlain College. Today, we'll be discussing the Water First organization, who is an organization that helps and devotes their time to the youth of the Aboriginal and the Indigenous community to help them gain an education in water and how to sustain their community. Today, we'll be discussing those topics, following some questions and some responses on both of our parts. To start us off, I have a first question for Alex. It would be, do you think that the water first communities would be open to having other cultures, races, and religions help them join their youth programs?
Okay, so first of all, Water First was first organized in Canada, Ontario, but it was first to help the schools in Uganda. So it was to build schools in Uganda and provide them with clean water. So I'm pretty sure that the Water First community is pretty open to other races, cultures, and no matter where you come from, they will help you out. They won't necessarily just come up to you and help you out, but if they see that there is a cause to come and help for, they will be there.
Okay, so yeah, it would make sense that since they started elsewhere, that they'd be accepting to other people, other cultures, religions, and races into the community and their program. Next question would be, would it be a better idea to reach support and aid from other people or other communities outside of the Aboriginal Indigenous community, or would it be better for them to build everything from their ground up and their organization and their own community to help and support themselves to have a clean and harmless economy in their own sense?
Okay, so this is a pretty controversial question, but I think the clear answer is I don't like if they didn't need to reach out to others, they would have done it on their own. So obviously, I think that them reaching out is a good idea. But what Water First does is they come back and they pick indigenous students and then they reinstate them in the Water First community. So they take them in for stages, basically. So, for example, water testers, biologists, chemists, or whatever, they come back and take them from their own communities to reinstate them in the Water First organization. So they are basically saving their own community. So it's kind of a cycle, but it started from a Ontarian country, right? So it didn't start with them on their own, but thanks to this organization, it kind of creates a cycle to a better community for the indigenous people.
Okay, cool. And last question on my part is, how does the Water First community serve the Aboriginal community? How do they help their youth or their adults? Like what do they do in a sense?
So as I said earlier, they retake, for example, the youth, the students that need the education, place them into good schools, and then once they're out of these schools, they can come back and work for the Water First, the Water First not community, but the Water First organization, and it kind of creates a cycle, right? So it educates their youth within their community and obviously helps them provide with clean and sustainable water that they can use for drinking, cooking, taking a shower, and whatnot. So now I have a couple questions for you, Benny, but they are more technical questions about Water First. So, what is Water First, and what does it really stand for?
Water First, in the overall grand scheme of things, it's an organization that's devoted to helping spreading awareness of the Indigenous community's water issue, as well as managing multiple campaigns to directly help Indigenous communities. So what they like to do is they like to have use of their own culture and community get into the program first and be able to really go through all the technical aspects and learning from the program and what it's about. They also get about 2,000 hours worth of experience and 50 months equivalent to that. And throughout this whole time, they learn about the sustainability of their water issues. They could then become alumni and even continuing their educations to further open more doors for themselves and their communities.
So basically, they're kind of creating a good vicious cycle for their own community, correct?
Exactly. They're creating a healthy cycle for their own community. Just like as in water, you have water and you reuse it and you refilter it and it comes back to you just cleaner. It's the same thing in their community. They're taking use, putting them into the education system, they're recycling them, and they're making sure that they have people who, when they're elders, will have the education that originally and rooted from their community. So it keeps their community up and running and as original and pure as possible.
All right, that is really cool, actually. And where did it first originate from? Water first.
It's actually pretty cool because it originated in Toronto, Canada, as that's where most Aboriginal communities and problems currently are occurring. It is also where the first tribe called the Oneida tribe is located. So Toronto, Canada is a real hub spot and a hot spot for a majority of the Aboriginal and the indigenous tribes. So it's kind of unique that it originated in Canada.
And my last question is, does water first just help with the indigenous people's water problem?
In the in a sense, yes, it only at this moment it only helps their Aboriginal community as that is their main problem, their main focus because they have a serious water crisis. So at first, their main priority is to take care and serve their own community. But in reality, this could become something much greater. It could spread and it could honestly become and scale something into majority of communities, majority of religions, races, cultures, whatnot. It could scale into all these other aspects of society in general because it's such a smart way of thinking about it. Instead of relying on other people, you rely on your own community and you make sure that what you're doing is done right. Because if it's not, then it's just going to hurt your own community. So in sense, you're looking out for your people, you're taking care of your youth, you're making sure they get an education, and you're recycling and cycling through your whole community to make sure everything is running and being as proper as it can. It's like a well-oiled machine that is always being maintained and always has maintenance. It's honestly a great and unique way of doing things. And I don't see why it can't work out in other communities.
All right, I see. Thanks a lot for having me today. I think this is the end of the podcast for our second podcast, and there might be a last podcast for the Educatic Activism podcast. So see you guys next time.
Stay tuned.